Hey there guys, Spets here, back again with another patch rundown, this time for patch 5.15. I know I say this every time, but I really mean it this time. This is a very short patch, only a handful of changes really. The main things I'm going to focus on are the changes to Fiora. It's a full update to her. Her kit is very interesting, I would say, and to Teemo, his shrooms and passive, mainly his shrooms. But we'll talk about that when we get there. The first order of business is Gangplank. There aren't really any changes to him besides maybe this, it sounds like a bug fix, or I don't even know what this is. Greatly reduced the radius where Parlay automatically acquires a keg at 1 HP. Not exactly sure. I haven't had another chance to play him because he has been deactivated, but we'll see. I'm not completely sure. His Q seemed fine in its interaction with the barrel, but maybe I just missed it. He also now automatically acquires Silver Serpents on ARAM map, so Howling Abyss, Butcher's Bridge, Twisted Tree Line, which is the Threes map, and Crystal Scar, which is Dominion. So you don't really farm a lot, and that's more of like a skirmishing, kind of team fighting oriented playstyle in all those maps to different extents, obviously. But it's just too difficult to actually get your Silver Serpents for your ultimate, so it makes them weaker in those. So this is a kind of to curb that weakness. The first major change though is to Fiora, and I want to show you guys exactly what her abilities do and how they interact with each other. I did get a chance to play her on PBE, so I have some insight and some things that I can tell you guys about her. I don't know exactly how she'll pan out, but we'll see. So we'll just go into it right now. So this is her passive. So you guys see this mark right here, right? There's a timer on it. And the reason it's only on one side of the enemy champion is because that is the side that you have to hit it. So the name of the ability is Duelist Stance. I don't know if that's the greatest name for it, but basically these are weak spots on the enemy champion. And you see how it disappears? And now it's going to appear immediately after. Okay, so to activate these weak spots, you have to hit the target on that side where the weak spot is. So you'll see one hit. And it appears again, another hit. So what this does, it gives Fiora movement speed. It also does, I'm pretty sure, true damage that scales with her AD. Yeah, and it also gives her a heal as well. So it's again similar to her old passive where it heals, but it's better in that sense. And it's also more interactive. It gives a little bit more of a boost for actually activating, because sometimes it is hard. You can't always get to that exact spot. But maybe her next ability. I'm not exactly sure how this works because I was testing it out, but I'm not 100% sure if it works the way I think it does. So we'll just watch it right now. You guys can hear it. So you guys can see exactly how it works, and then we'll redo it again. Okay, so what it is, you guys see that huge circle. Well, first you aim in a direction, and then there's a huge circle, similar to how Ekko's E works. And it hits the targets in that AoE. It only hits one of the targets, but depending on who you want to hit, so like it prioritizes champions with weak spots, the passive, so you can do more damage that way. But the one thing I'm really interested in is if it prioritizes the weak spots, even if it's on the other side of the champion, and you hit the AoE. Like that's what I'm wondering, because that will depend on if her ultimate is very strong or not. It just depends, and I'll explain why I say that later. So this is both a gap closer and an escape tool. Helps her proc her passive, that kind of stuff. I mainly think it's going to be strong for proccing her passive. It also gives some extra damage and clearing the waves a bit, but I think the passive is the main thing that makes this ability strong. Next is Repost, which is her defensive ability. It has been changed. I'll let you guys watch it first. Okay, so obviously you guys can see it's a skill shot. You guys can see it again. And it can reflect crowd control abilities. So the one major strength of Repost now is that it can block everything. I'm pretty sure it is everything. It can block CC, damage of any ability, any auto attack, stuff like that. And there's a few like interesting characteristics of it. Now it is a skill shot, so to reflect the damage, you still won't take the damage no matter what, even if you miss the skill shot. you can reflect the damage just by activating. And there's a 0.75 second duration of the activate. So you guys can see. So it's a delayed skill shot, so you have to keep that in mind. So people can dodge with like mobility spells especially, but it will always block the damage. So that's a really important thing. So you have 0.75 seconds in which you are kind of invulnerable in a sense. I don't know if it's to all crowd control abilities, so maybe if you time this with a Warwick ult, you might be able to stop it. That would be very interesting. I want to see if that works. I haven't had many chances to use it in like these kind of scenarios, but that is a very strong ability. It has a very long cooldown though. That's the problem with a lot of her abilities. Her Q and W have really long cooldowns. So I want to see how people use this. Some very big outplay potential, but again, it's very difficult to use because you actually have to hit this skill shot, and the timing is very small for such a long cooldown ability. This next ability is probably the most consistent out of Fiora's new abilities, and it's an auto attack modifier. So if you guys noticed, we'll play it again without the sound. The first attack is guaranteed slow, but the thing is it cannot crit. Even if you have 100% crit, it cannot crit. The second attack is a guaranteed crit though. And that is probably the most consistent damage source that Fiora has. It has a fairly low cooldown. I was trying to work with it and see if I can max E, but overall it didn't feel that great. For damage, I guess it's good for dueling, but wave clear is really bad, stuff like that. Just overall, it just felt weird. But it is your most consistent damage tool, and kind of replaces that auto attack steroid that she used to have. Still very good though, in my opinion. It gives her some CC there too, so I really like it. The last ability is Grand Challenge. Quite different. You guys can take a look. So she ults a target, and you guys can see huge AoE. You get a large movement speed boost inside the AoE, and it exposes 4 weak points, or weak spots they call it, around the target. And each one, I think, scales with what your passive is, so it'll do that much damage, or it might scale even more. So I'm not 100% sure, I have to check. But once it procs, it heals. It's basically like a Janna heal. I don't know what the ratios are, but I think it's around Janna heal level. You can see it heals a ton of health. So the way to proc is either getting 4 weak spots, so like maybe using your Q to proc them along with your auto attacks. The thing is, it's really hard to actually proc all 4. So another way is the way they did it here. If you kill the target with the ultimate on them, it also heals. So that's a very good addition to it, along with actually hitting all 4 sides, which is very difficult in my opinion, depending on how her abilities interact with the weak spots, like her Q mainly. But it's very strong once it does pop, because of how much it does heal your team. That's basically a Mundo heal, if you really think about it. Maybe a little weaker. It just depends on how much health you have. But overall, very interesting. Right now, I'm kind of skeptical about how strong she's going to really be. But I think people will figure out a really good use for her. Maybe as like a tanky duelist with some damage. Like, I'm pretty sure Ravenous Hydra is still going to be good, because she does have a lack of wave clear right now. So I think it will really help her. She doesn't have that assassination potential that she used to have. It's harder to just like point and click and just murder someone in her head, which is, I guess, fine, because that was one of her problems. She's very snowbally, either really bad or really good, and that was one of her problems. But very interesting, and I'm excited to see what people do with her. But I do think she's on the weaker side just by playing against her. Not many people really made her work. The reason I say that is probably because it's just a champion that's new, and people don't know how to build, how to do all the things with her, like how her abilities interact. I mean, it's PvE, so people aren't always the most efficient with how they, I don't know, play the game. That's just the truth compared to just regular play. So like, actually figuring out all like the intricacies of a champion, sometimes people just give up. People actually just stop playing her after a while, to be honest, even though she was still reworked, unlike some other like reworked champions like Gangplank that people really did keep playing after a while. So I don't know, we'll see. Next change is to Ekko. and very confusing change, especially in the context of the older changes that they did to Ekko. We'll talk about them though. So one change is to passive Z drive resonance, which is auto attack, like the 3 hit on hit passive. They increased the ability power ratio of it. They reduced the slows at basically all points in the game, so 40 to 80, now it's 30 to 60. Different levels, obviously it spikes at, so keep that in mind. But overall, the slow is weaker. Still very good slow. The movement speed it gives you, instead of 80%, actually the movement speed is still 80%, so that's like a really strong movement speed buff. So that's still very strong. They buffed the AP ratio to give more strength to DPS kits, or like burst kits on Ekko, which people haven't been doing as much. They've been doing like jungle tank, Cinder Hulk Ekko, which I guess is interesting, but that wasn't what he was meant to be played as, in my opinion. The next change is to, again, a nerf to the tank Ekkos. He didn't need to really buy any AP to have such a huge base shield. 330 is quite high for a shield. Even though it is a long cooldown, you only need it once in a team fight, so it's very powerful, along with the stun, obviously. They nerfed the base, but gave it a huge AP ratio. This is massive. This is almost double the AP ratio. Keep that in mind. So getting AP, you're really rewarded for that. So that's I want to see more AP burst Ekko. His kit just makes so much sense with it, and along with this next change, it's gonna be the way to go, in my opinion. Which I just want to see more of it. He has so much outplay potential, so many like plays that you can make with him. I understand his W is like the main thing that people go around. His ultimate too, but like I feel like maybe this is too high, but I think they're gonna need to do something to make his AP builds viable. His Q is not the most reliable damage source. That's one of the problems with him, but we'll see. We'll go through the next change though. Okay, so the last major change to Ekko is to his ultimate. They nerfed the level, or the rank 2 and 3, the base heal of it, and made it all 20%. So that seems kind of bad. Why would you do that, guys? Ekko's not in the greatest spots now. All those kind of complaints, you know. They now buffed AP Ekko by a ton. They double the AP ratio. So just an example, 300 AP. Before, you would get 10% extra of the damage dealt back as a heal. Now you get 20%. So at rank 3, so let's say level 16, you would have the same heal at 300 AP for both, because this would be 10% right here, 10% heal back plus 30%, so that'd be 40 total. Now this is 20% plus 20%. But anything after that, so if you're going full burst Ekko with like a Lich Bane, Death Cap, Zhonya's, maybe a Nashor's, I don't know what kind of builds people are going to work with. Probably Abyssal is going to be there. I know Abyssal is going to be in there because of how high his shield ratio is, and how magic resist really helps the shields. This is absolutely massive. Once he gets like 700 AP, maybe 800 AP, he's going to do absurd amount of healing with his ultimate. We can just do the math right now, actually. Let's open up. Okay, so let's be conservative with the numbers. Let's say 700 AP with a 6-item build on AP Ekko. I'm being conservative because around, you can get maybe 800, sometimes 900 if you have like full AP per level blues with Baron buff, first dragon buff, and you know, elixir. You can get quite a lot of AP, but let's say just use this for conservative values, maybe some defensive items. This will be a decent value. And then divide that, sorry, by 15. So that is the percentage that you will get just from this part. You still have the base amount, so 66.66 repeating percentage of your health back, of the damage taken. That is insane, especially with the shield along with that. Let's just do the math right now, if you guys want to do it right now, so I can just show you. So 160. No, wait, I'll just do this. 1.5 times 700. 1050 plus 160. So just do the math. plus 160. Okay, so 1200 shield value plus the heal. This guy is going to be extremely hard to kill. This was a little overboard maybe. I know they nerfed the base, but this is an insane AP ratio, along with the 1.5 AP ratio on his ultimate. He's going to be played. He might even be first pick, first ban worthy if the player is good enough. I know Faker, like, he always likes to take time and really experiment with these. He even said in an interview, I don't know if I can find it, but he said he likes to really experiment on champions that have such a unique kit like Ekko. So that will take time, but I know he's going to be in competitive play with these numbers. They're just too damn good, let's be honest. But besides that, really, I have nothing else to talk about Ekko. He's just going to be really good now. The next change is to Nidalee. They overall nerfed her damage in human form at later parts of the game. That's basically what happened here. And they nerfed the utility of Bushwhack. So I'll just go through them really quickly, very simple changes. So cast time increase, this makes it so aiming the javelin's a little harder. There's a little bit more of a delay, not a big delay though, so it's still fine. That's not a big deal. The next change is worse though. 20 damage nerf at very short distances in the late game, and a 60 damage nerf in the late game of Javelin Toss. And this will I don't know. The real major problem with Nidalee is her early game, and if you're doing really well as Nidalee, her late game can be a problem because not because of her spears. Her spears can be dealt with, especially in the jungle role, because you just don't get enough farm and gold in the jungle role. It's mainly her heal maybe, but she isn't that strong in the late game. You get Nidalee for that early game strength. So if you're gonna nerf Nidalee, I would say nerf that portion of her. Maybe they're just trying to make her really polarized, so really strong early game and really weak late game. So I understand that, but that's basically what they're doing. They're making her late game even weaker now. I don't know. I think it was fine. She does put on a lot of pressure, but again, this won't change that. So we'll see. The changes to Bushwhack, this is fine to be honest. 1200 radius vision is insane. Keep that in mind. Let me see, what can I compare it to? Ezreal Q range is around like 1150, I think it was, like 1050, something along those lines. And Ezreal Q is quite a long range, so keep that in mind. It's double that. 400, definitely needed. That's still a pretty big radius, so keep that in mind. She's gonna be fine in this regard, but this will hurt her late game for sure. The next change to Sivir. To kind of put her more in line with other AD carries. The main reason I see Sivir as a problem in any kind of a game is the strength she gives to her team. So this is mainly a nerf to her early game strength and the strength she gives to her team. So let's say champions before this patch, they would walk into Sivir's ult radius afterwards, after she already ulted. They would get the same duration, so it would actually last a little longer than, let's say, Sivir's movement speed would. Even though they walked in later, instead of just ending when her actual ult ends. So now it just makes it so they get a shorter amount of a shorter duration, and also that they don't start with the initial movement speed buff. They also nerfed the early game, the level 6 and level 11 ultimates. So overall, she's just much weaker. She's still gonna be really strong. I think she's still gonna be played. Her ultimate is just too good for those team fights. Gives your team the strength to just jump on their carries. It makes champions like Vi, champions like who's really popular nowadays. Jarvan isn't really popular anymore, but champions that really just want to jump on you to just get rid of you immediately. And she just has so much threat with that ultimate. If anyone's caught out at all, Sivir ults, you're basically dead unless you're near like a wall to flash over and they don't have flash. It's just so powerful for that reason. You just cannot separate, and even when you are like together, it's still too powerful. So I think this is to curb that. She still has a lot of damage with her W, so keep that in mind. Still gonna be a pretty strong champion. Just put her more in line with other AD carries. So finally, Teemo, the Satan of League of Legends, or the techies of League of Legends. I know that's a champion that people really hate in Dota. So they have changed quite a few things with his passive and his ultimate, mainly his ultimate, so we'll just talk about those. Okay, so the first change is to his passive camouflage. So before, it used to be kind of gimmicky. You can maybe get level 1 damage on someone, not even really that important. Maybe if someone is really inexperienced, that would work against them. But really, the main use I ever had for it was maybe waiting in a cluster of mushrooms, or like an area where mushrooms are, and then they walk over it, and then you can ambush them that way, and it's really frustrating. That's part of the reason why Teemo's so annoying. He can just do things like that. Now it scales throughout the game, and by itself, that would still not make it a great passive. But keep in mind, they also reduce the stealth timer. Not a big difference. This is a pretty big buff to it, but what really is good is when you're in brushes, now it's a 0.75 second fade time, or not fade time, but like delay until you actually fade away. So keep that in mind. So in the top lane, he'll be really strong for, let's say you go into the top lane, and what a lot of ranged champions do is go in and out of top brushes, so they can harass and then walk into the brush and get that get the minion aggro away from them. So that was one thing that all ranged champions do. Now Teemo gets a benefit to that. He gets that attack speed bonus, so it scales pretty hard. So let's say the last time you would actually use that in a laning phase is probably 10. 15 is around the time when people actually start like team fighting and grouping. But even then, if you're like split pushing, this will help. You can go into a brush, either try to get away, so with a 0.75 second delay, that's very quick. You can just disappear immediately. And if they don't have a red trinket that's upgraded, or a pink ward, you just get away, or you can just use that to increase your DPS by 80% or 60%. So like, it's huge in that sense. You can also move while inside the brush. So if they didn't have like a pink ward or a red trinket that's upgraded, they might use like AoE abilities. You can move around and actually reposition yourself and actually juke. Let's say they're on the left side of the brush trying to hit you because that's where you stopped. You can just run to the right side and just keep juking. Like, there's many different things that you can do with it. It's just a more flexible ability now. The next change is to his ultimate. So this is undoubtedly a nerf right here. 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes. So you have a lower potential for the number of shrooms on the map, so that makes it weaker in that sense. So keep that in mind. That's one nerf, and people have been really, I don't know, too fast on making judgments on this change. So that is bad, no doubt about that. But let's put it into the context of the other changes. Okay, so the next change is the slow now decays over 4 seconds. Again, a nerf, but there's still a slow over the 4-second duration. So why I say that is because Leandry's is often a core item on Teemo's looking to do a lot of shroom based damage, so like a lot of objective control, a lot of damage through his ultimate. So you still have a slow there. That's not a problem in that sense, but it does decay. So that's, again, another nerf. 2 nerfs already. The next change is what makes this probably the best change in my opinion. Teemo shrooms, they're good for like objective control, but you have to put yourself in a position where you're underneath the, like you're right on top of the place you want to put the shroom. So in some places that's not that great. Now at level 1 isn't the greatest. It's still a very short distance. But level or rank 2 and rank 3 are absolutely amazing. I swear. The things you can do with Teemo in just a short amount of time. Let's say you're top lane, you go to the river. And you throw a shroom over the wall. You just throw it in like key locations very quickly. It just makes it much faster, much safer. That's very important. Sometimes you just can't go in locations you want to put shrooms. This fixes that problem. It also helps you scout as well. Keep that in mind. One thing that is a problem though that people haven't, or the patch doesn't say, and I've heard about, is that it actually doesn't give you persistent vision where you throw it. So that might be a problem. So that is a nerf. I don't know if that's true. I haven't really paid attention because I usually am looking away and see when someone gets hit by a shroom, but maybe that is the truth, and that is actually quite a big nerf because persistent vision of people who get hit by it, it's very useful, so you know exactly where they're going after they get hit, or like the area around the shroom, you want to know exactly like who is there even if they didn't hit the shroom. So that's very important. The arm time is a little higher, a problem, but that is actually a pretty big problem in like all-in scenarios. So let's say a melee champion jumps on you and you put down your shroom. They either stop fighting you or they run into it and get hit. This will actually give them a little more time to do whatever they want. It might not seem significant, but it's a 50% increase, so keep that in mind. Percentage-wise, it is a big change. So again, a nerf. So quite a few nerfs so far, but I don't know. I want to say the cast range is enough of a change to make him stronger, but we'll see. Casting traps on existing noxious traps causes them to bounce 3 to 4, 5. So basically, they say 3, 4, 5 Teemos further in the direction they were originally tossed, but basically it's the distance of your actual toss. So it's actually going to bounce the actual distance again. So instead of 300, it's going to be 600 distance, 1200 distance, 1800 distance. So it just jumps another cast range further if you landed on a trap or on your shroom. So that helps to kind of just like, I don't know, maybe just put in locations you wouldn't be able to reach, period. Again, scouting. It's kind of interesting. I still haven't completely figured out exactly how you would use it, but it's an interesting mechanic. Mushrooms now die to 3 basic attacks from ranged champions and 2 basic attacks from melee champions. So the reason this is good is because oftentimes in a late game, if you have a red trinket, you could clear shrooms very quickly if you're a ranged champion. You just do a lot of damage and you just kill them very quickly, and it's very annoying. This actually makes it more like a ward where you actually have to spend a certain number of basic attacks to actually kill it. So this makes it a little better for melees to clear it out, because they have to put themselves in danger to actually do this. Ranged champions still have an easier time, but at least it's 3 basic attacks instead of 1. Makes it harder to clear out Teemo shrooms. Besides that, I don't know. I think Teemo is actually in a better spot now. He's just more usable as a champion. I think this cast range by itself is a huge buff to Teemo. It just allows you to create a zone, allows you to actually use them in team fights. Like, the only time you would use them in team fights is if you're kind of baiting the enemy team into a location where they're just going to run over shrooms and it's going to completely destroy their team. The shrooms are very good if you can actually preset them. This will allow you to put it in locations from a distance, and though it takes time to arm, sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes like people get crowd control, they don't notice you throwing it. There's so many things that are going on in a team fight that just a little shroom jumping past you and dropping by near the team fight, in the middle of the team fight, you won't notice. So this is actually a huge buff to him. People are crying about it, but I honestly think this is a big buff overall. So even though there are nerfs to Teemo, like so the 5-minute nerf, obviously the slow decay and the arm time are the biggest nerfs to it, there are more upsides. This changes the way you play Teemo and the safety with which you can play Teemo. I think AP Teemo is going to be the way to go, just because how shrooms are basically just much stronger now than they were before. So that's all I really have to say. I think he's going to be obviously solo queue viable. I know everything is solo queue viable basically, unless they're super weak. Competitive viability, I can see it happening for objective focused teams. Not top lane obviously, but mid lane. I can see it mid lane. Top lane is just, there's too many things that you can do to a top lane Teemo. Lane swaps is one thing, tower diving, he's just not a champion suited for that role. But who knows? I think mid lane does have a chance to do it. We would have to see though. This does change the way he plays though, for sure. The next change is to Zeke's Harbinger, and a few tweaks to kind of charging mechanics and how long the buff sticks around when you're next to an ally. So charges per ability have been decreased. So instead of 12, you have 8 now. Charges per an attack lower. So everything is just lower in terms of how fast it charges, because I actually think this is a very strong item in the mid and late game when you do get Infinity Edge on an AD carry, or if you get a lot of AP on just certain champions. It's very good. I don't know what they're talking about jungle. AP jungle zooms out. Like, let's be honest, that's just like a trolley build. I know there are very fringe scenarios where if you get ahead on AP jungle zooms out with the Devourer and maybe this item, it would be super strong, but let's not even mention that. Just overall, it's going to be a little weaker, a little bit more window to actually gain charges if you stop using an ability or auto attacking. So that's a little better. Fixed a bug where Zeke's stacks were transferring to a new target after recasting the active, which is actually quite powerful. This is a bug that they should have fixed. So let's say you're at 100 stacks on, let's say a tank that you were your jungler that you were walking around with as a support for warding. It's 100 stacks. Then you go to your AD carry, transfer it to them, and it's 100 stacks, and you're ready to fight immediately. So that's a bug that they fixed. Fixed a bug where Zeke's wasn't giving assists. So again, just giving assists to champions where they deserve it, I guess, because it is a very powerful item that boosts your damage. The only other changes to the HUD, quite a few changes to the HUD. Overall, you guys can read this. The font on the stats is bigger. The font where leveling up, it shows you that there's like an indicator that you're leveling up. That's bigger. Just overall, that's bigger. They changed what it looks like, so you guys can take a look. I'll have some screenshots. I will actually put them in the description below. It will link it to my WordPress, where I will have all the screenshots in an album. It will be at the very top so you guys can see it, and it will just show you exactly what it looks like. What I feel is very good about the HUD. I know people were really displeased with the original HUD, and there were reasons. Like, I feel like it was very crammed, all the information. The numbers in the stats bar was very, again, crammed. It's just a lot of things that they actually made worse, even though it looked nicer. So overall, I think this is a much better HUD. Looks cleaner, and I'll just show you guys in these screenshots. So hopefully you guys like it. I do like it. There might be some slight tweaks later on, but overall it's much better, much cleaner, much easier to read, and pleasing to the eyes. Not as much crammed information. So I like it, and hopefully you guys do. That should be it though, guys. There are a few different things down here, bug fixes, and instant feedback. But overall, nothing too important. Hopefully you guys like this again. Give me feedback. So I've been thinking of changing the format of the patch notes, guys. So what I was thinking of doing was making it kind of a video format, not like this. First, I would maybe talk about the changes. So I would have it up on the screen, and right below that or right next to it, I would have the actual changes being displayed. So let's say the passive to Fiora, I will show you it instead of just using a video. I will actually show you the changes to, let's say, Teemo shrooms, how it works, how it bounces, the range of it, that kind of stuff. And it would make it much more pleasing for you guys. But if you guys are not interested in that, just want to see a very quick rundown just with this, let me know. But thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.